Hello Internet, I'm Jackie Fox, and if you just recently started playing wotv, this video is especially for you, and I say especially because other players should listen up too. Especially guild leaders, anybody who is kind of organizing for your guild, take notes because I am about to show you how to potentially have a very profitable future, at least in terms of guild war. But before I can tell you how we're gonna do that, we have to take a break for our commercial sponsor, War of the Visions Arena. We'll be right back after this match. Okay folks, they're loading in. It could be anybody today. Recently I've been doing about 60 rounds of arena per day, recording with all the different elements against all the different elements with various combination of elements, and well, eventually I got kind of bored and decided to build something funky. Yes, that's right, you're seeing 3 MR units, and you're also seeing some of the newest and strongest Earth units in the game. Now, obviously Wind has a little bit of an advantage over Earth, but I mean, these are the best Earth characters in the game. Certainly they couldn't just, I mean, what's gonna happen? Okay, Oberon's coming in. Here's the LB. Ooh, that did some damage, and that is going to be important, but so is that buff. Whoa, that was almost 14,000 damage from a single hit. Just as soon as she could get in range, 14,000 damage. There's another 5,000 and a protect remove. You can see that Dario is taking more damage than everyone else. He's also not doing a lot of damage, even compared to Helena, who just last minute got some bodying in on this one. I'm surprised that didn't get the KO. She barely made it with that. And I've got to say, I am not terribly impressed with what I've seen from Rurugia. But on the other hand, I am very impressed by this buff right here, and we're gonna have to talk about it because look at that, 24, 35 damage, like what? This is absurd. Why is this so good? Welcome back folks, that was one hell of a match, wasn't it? I mean, I've gotta say, I didn't expect that to play out the way it did, not at all. I mean, good lord. And really, this team has so much amazing synergy together that I gradually started pulling the UR units off of it. This isn't a Wind account, by the way. I have never, I stubbornly refused to pull for Wind anything on this account for a very long time. The only exception was More the Merrier and her card, which is actually incredibly beneficial here. That is providing me both with Maneater on magic attack, HP, and 20 earth attack resistance up. We also have 10 10 wind attack resistance up from his sub VC. We're getting a lot of speed over here on Helena. We're also going to see her kit be able to, through her TMR, both raise HP, but also get to the point where no one's ever going to target her. She has so much negative hate. Especially not with a good tank next to her. And then there's Sorel. Sorel, and for a lot of things that I'm not going to go into on this build because we don't have time, I mean, I can talk about this specific build later in a longer video because believe me, I plan to keep testing it, and I swear to God, I will use this in the highest level guild war I can and report the results because, wow, it is stonking amazing. But it's not so much about that. It's about the fact that you can get 600 shards for any MR unit in the game through the challenge boards. You can also get all of the other awakening materials, all of that. So effectively, for very little resources, anyone, unless you've already done this, anyone could build Dario to 99. MR units that you do have to pull, like Dario and Helena, you will eventually get pulling other units. You'll get them all rather quickly. Especially if you have to go to pity for something, that's enough pulls to get a lot of the MR units in the game. And then Sorel is completely free. Her quest might be a little difficult. Maybe you want to build Dario first, take him through some of the story. If you get Helena, you can kind of build her up too. She's going to be really powerful in terms, like White Mage just has such a powerful heal now that even in the early game, even in low levels, she's going to be a really good support if you have nothing else really going on for your team. And the thing that we're seeing here with Sorel is that I have stacked a lot of different types of accuracy on this team and on Sorel specifically, so she's not even having trouble with evasion units. In fact, she's allowing the evasion units to group up around her so that she can blast them with her close range courage removing move that can take down multiple units at one time, and is exactly the move that we saw do 14,000 damage to Oberon in Fight 1. So the specifics of this build aren't super important, just know that it gets up into the 90s in terms of earth resistance, and some of these characters can easily get their defense with buffing up into like 75. Like Helena in this build can get her defense up to about 70 with that buff. It's utterly ridiculous. So this is kind of your starting point. This is your path of least resistance into a new account, or into Wind more broadly if you're kind of looking to expand into Wind. You're also going to have Tifa, so especially early on, maybe you're using Dario and Tifa, and then you use that to get Sorel, and then you have Dario, Tifa, and Sorel. You have Helena at a lower level healing for you. You need another unit. Well, you already have 3 great MR units now. That's why I had you start with this. So now you can go to the Wind Select quest, get a bunch of Wind Awakening materials, which you're going to need relatively soon, and you can get yourself Gargus, who is a long-range UR Black Mage, who also has some really incredible close-range kit for taking care of evasion units. So he would actually be a good way to spec into Guaranteed Hit. Now, for this, in my experience, Sorel has been so darn accurate that a Guaranteed Hit is not relevant for her, especially after she applies her own accuracy buffs to herself. But Guaranteed Hit would be one way to expand this team. Gargus is, I mean, he can't heal. I think I actually like Helena more than Gargus a little bit, but he's definitely more of a damage unit. So if you need that, you need a 5th unit really here to complete your early Wind team to play alongside your Tifa. And then, you know, Full Metal Alchemist comes around and we're getting Edward for free. So now you have 2 UR Wind Strike units that have a lot of synergy with each other. I would maybe at this point consider getting Alphonse, or maybe Vega. I don't know. Because if you have kind of a lot of the strategies that I'm employing here, and lightning unit up front that's kind of tanky, you know, you might draw in earth teams and really screw with people on defense, maybe even potentially with some of these MR units, if you have to. And in lower tier meta, that's definitely going to work pretty well. But it does give you room to grow. And again, you know, at this point we have an MR team that we see beating the meta Earth teams right now like it's no problem. Like they could just keep doing this forever if they needed to, which isn't true because of, you know, they'll eventually run out of casts for things. I mean, even the base resists for this party are freaking ridiculous. So even if they ran out of buffs, they just wouldn't take much damage. Okay. You have a great MR team, and now you at least have 3 Wind UR units that you didn't have to pay for, you didn't have to pull for at all. And that's pretty freaking cool. I mean, even if you play a different element, or even if you want to play a different element. And by the way, if you're looking for good complements to Wind, well, the way that I recommend choosing elements, it would be to skip the next element over, which would be ice or earth. So on the other side of ice, you're going to get fire, and I really don't recommend, especially new players, spec into fire. But on the other side of Earth, you have lightning, and lightning and wind do make a pretty good combination. I definitely think that's a good one. So this brings me to guild leaders, because back when, Lucio was coming out on Global, we were getting word from JP that Locke was coming. We didn't know what would be coming after Locke, importantly. But we did know that we had this great 80 cost pseudo tank in Lucio that anyone in our guild could build. We didn't have to rely on people pulling it. So it was an amazing backbone for our teams. And then, people who could afford to would get Elena. People who had pulled Yuna way back in the day were using Yuna. We had a variety of kind of ragtag things, but Lucio, being a free unit, was able to draw it together, and unfortunately it didn't last much after Locke, or we would have had 2 free units anchoring our teams, and then, you buy 1 wind unit and you're fine. So, that's kind of how I see it. And again, you are doing all of this, and you are using resources for sure, but you are pretty much getting all 6 of these units over the next couple of months for free, which again leaves you the ability to save up like really diligently into whatever other thing you want in the future. Again, I would recommend lightning and or dark or light. Dark and light are always going to be a good choice in this game. So if you are organizing your guild and you're trying to get everybody kind of rallied together to throw maybe some of the same things on defense, then maybe a wind wall would be potentially effective. I don't know. It depends on how much ice is in your meta. One thing that I was definitely surprised by, the only element that didn't show up in the top 20, a single unit in the top 20 from 400 down, was ice. So wind walls might actually be pretty effective, and ice is only really going to get upgrades until they get Reagan, and Reagan is going to be kind of awkward at first. I'm not saying that your wind wall is going to be impervious. I'm not saying that it might not be smart to throw a lightning unit up front for whatever reason, to trick people into attacking it, at least getting that first one over on them. But I think that you could potentially have variations of wind on your wall, and really give some people something tricky to deal with, because, like, okay, say they have 5 ice teams on offense, or 4. Say some of them have a little bit of trouble getting through your wind because you kind of built to be tricky for them. Right? So maybe they take out those ice teams, take out like 5 or 6 or 7 of your teams. But you got 23 left, and if they're all relatively coordinated and you've got all the ones that were easy counters out of the way, the rest of the guild is like looking at all these wind units like, wow, we have a lot of earth here on offense, and yikes. I mean, I don't know that earth will ever necessarily be a huge... Well, I mean, it definitely will be with Cloud and lower tier. This is going to be one of the foundational kind of differences. I don't know if low tier is going to get the Skahal meta. It would make sense because he's an older unit that feasibly a lot of players have accidentally built up shards for. But anyways, that is my future planning guide for getting into Wind, whether you're a new player, an older player, or just looking to stretch out into another element while it's free to get your good basis. Anyways, happy building, and see you in the next one.